good morning or afternoon, as the case may be, depending on your local region. Everyone, happy to see you all here. My name is Richard Robinette, and I'm an attorney. I'm a partner at Dodson Robinette PLLC, doing business as crowdfunding lawyers. Most people know us as crowdfunding lawyers. We are a boutique private securities and commercial real estate and business law firm. We help investors who are doing deals raise capital safely and legally. We also do business formations. We do asset protection, commercial real estate, and a whole bunch of other fun stuff. But our bread and butter really is helping you stay out of jail when you want to raise money from investors, stay compliant with the SEC and FINRA and all the various state regulatory bodies that deal with securities and capital and business. That's not what I came here to talk about today. Today, we are going to talk about how to avoid penalties under the Corporate Transparency Act. And if you have an LLC, a corporation, an LP, chances are very strong that you are going to be affected by this law. I am a lawyer, and lawyers, are obligated to do mandatory disclaimers. So I apologize, but here's the disclaimer. This is not legal advice. This is just for education and information. It does not guarantee to be exhaustive or complete. This is not creating an attorney-client relationship. If it were, I would be charging you a lot more money for this presentation. So there, take that, put it in your pipe and smoke it. And I'm just going to jump right in. So what is the Corporate Transparency Act? Well, it's a new law. It actually just went into effect January 1st of this year, 2024. And it created a database managed by FinCEN, which is part of the Department of Treasury, where most small businesses have to file a report informing FinCEN of information about their business and its owners and controlling parties. And according to my good friend Janet Yellen, this law will curb money laundering and financial crimes and eliminate vulnerabilities in our financial system. So take that for what it's worth. Who does it affect? Well, just about anyone that has an LLC, a limited partnership, or a corporation. It also affects all of the individual owners, managers, directors, and officers of those LLCs, LPs, and corporations. And it will also affect some trustees and beneficiaries of various types of trusts. And the way you tell is if a trust was created by doing some sort of state filing, you submitted something to the Secretary of State of whatever state you're in order to form the trust, then you fall under this law. Now, fortunately, most trusts are just formed on paper. They're written up by an attorney. They're signed by everybody, and they get put into a safe deposit box. And the state and the government has nothing to do with it. Those trusts are not affected so far by this law. There are plans in the works I've read to expand this, where it won't only be LLCs and corporations, but it'll also be pieces of real estate. If you buy a piece of property, you're going to have to do a filing. So it may, regular trusts may fall under this eventually if they make changes. But so far, most trusts are not going to be affected. Okay, who else does it not affect? Well, government authorities, duh. Public companies, large operating companies, quote unquote. Now, what is a large operating company? Well, it's a company that has more than 20 full-time employees, has a physical office in the United States, and has reported more than $5 million in gross receipts on its tax return. So if you check all three of these boxes, you have a large operating company, and your company is exempt. Also banks, credit unions, insurance companies, basically anyone big enough to have a lobbyist got out of having to deal with this. And all of us little people are stuck having to do the filing. So the big dogs got themselves exempt and the rest of us have to file. Okay. It also doesn't exempt inactive entities. And before you get too excited about that, the definition of inactive entity is pretty darn narrow. So the entity has to have been formed before January 1st, 2020. So we're talking these are pre-COVID entities. They have no active business operations. They have no assets, including holdings in other entities. So if you have a holding company that doesn't have any actual business operations, if that holding company holds another LLC, then it is not an inactive entity, doesn't fall under this. It can't be owned by a foreign person. It can't have had any change in ownership in the previous 12 months. So no, shell companies that are being passed around. And it is not sent to receive more than $1,000 in the previous 12 months. And so, not very many entities are going to fall under this. And as we get further and further away from 2020, that pool is going to shrink even more. So there is an exception here, but it's not a big one. All right. So if your entity is not exempt, then you must file a report to FinCEN giving them personally identifiable information on behalf of all the beneficial owners. All right, well, that raises the question, what is a beneficial owner? I'm glad you asked. A beneficial owner is any individual who directly or indirectly owns or controls at least 25% of the ownership interests of the entity, or who exercises substantial control. So a beneficial owner might not actually own anything. They might not actually own any interest in the LLC, but if they have quote unquote substantial control, they are still considered a beneficial owner. And then the 25% ownership seems pretty straightforward, but some people have more complicated structures, and maybe they own a piece in their individual capacity, and they own a piece in a trust, and they own a piece through another LLC or a holding company or a partnership. So you have to look through all of these entities and add up the ownership percentages to see if the total that they, that's attributed to them adds up to 25% or more. If it does, they are a beneficial owner. Okay. The second part of that, in addition to the 25%, was substantial control. So what is substantial control? Well, according to the statute, it means that you are a senior officer, or you have authority over the appointment or removal of senior officers, or majority of the board of directors, or you have a majority of the voting rights in an entity. You can direct or have substantial influence over important decisions, such as the nature of the business, real estate purchases, sales, leases, mortgages, major expenditures, amendments to the governing documents. So if you have the power to amend the operating agreement of your LLC, that's substantial control. If you have any rights associated with the financing of the company, and the list goes on and on and on and on. I'm sorry, very dry, but really what it boils down to is substantial control means you have decision-making authority. Do you make decisions on behalf of the entity? Yes or no? If so, you have substantial control and therefore are a beneficial owner. Now, a real strict reading of the statute, you could conclude that, the CEO's mistress who has him wrapped around her finger, has decision-making authority because she influences major decisions. I don't know if the intent is really to take it that far. But certainly anyone that has official authority and decision-making capacity is going to be a beneficial owner. Now, when you look for beneficial owners, you have to look through all the layers of entities that might be there. So maybe you went to Anderson Advisors and they sold you this big complicated asset protection scheme with all kinds of LLCs and trusts and things here and there and there. We're going to just peek through all of that until we hit a person. So this is Bob. And Bob is the cutest business owner in the entire world. And let's say that Bob has a living trust, and in his living trust, there's a holding company, and that holding company holds a business LLC. All right, so this is not an atypical structure that someone might have. All right, so the living trust does not have to file a beneficial owner report unless it was formed by state filing. Most trusts aren't. So living trust, probably no report. Now the holding company has to file a report and the business LLC has to file a report. And both the holding company and the business LLC are going to name Bob as the beneficial owner and provide FinCEN information about Bob. Now, there is a quirk here, and that has to do with those entities I talked about earlier that were exempt, the ones that can afford the lobbyists that got them out of having to do this. So if you're looking through these entities and before you reach a human being, you reach an exempt entity, then you report the exempt entity as the beneficial owner. And the only information you have to give about the exempt entity is its name. So here's Bob again, and let's say Bob has an exempt large operating company. So remember, that's 20 employees or more, 5 million in revenue or more, and a physical presence in the United States. So he's got that entity is exempt. But let's say that entity holds another entity. Maybe there's a subsidiary LLC that does some kind of tangential business. The exempt entity doesn't require a report because it's exempt, but the child entity has to file the report. But the child entity, if we go look back through all these, through the structure, before we get to Bob, we get to this exempt entity. So the exempt entity is reported as the beneficial owner. And again, all we give is the name. So it's like beneficial owner is blah, 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 LLC, the end. Okay, couple other exceptions to having to report as a beneficial owner. One is minor children. And so if a minor child is a beneficial owner of an LLC, the child is not reported as a beneficial owner as long as their parent or guardian is. So someone has to be, you just don't have to name the child. Any nominees or agents or people, these are people who look like they're making decisions, but really they're just taking orders. And so they're just an intermediary acting for the actual beneficial owner. They do not need to be on the report. An employee, so maybe you have an employee and this employee makes business decisions, but the only reason they make beneficial business decisions is because of their employment status, and the only economic benefit they get is their compensation as an employee. In other words, they're not stockholders, they're not senior officers. It's just they're just maybe a middle manager or something that does make decisions, but is only doing that in their capacity as an employee. They do not need to be reported. Individuals of future interests. So you're named as a future beneficiary in a trust that holds an LLC, or you're just the heir to the empire, basically. Until that interest actually solidifies, you are not a beneficial owner and therefore don't have to report. You only report once you take hold of the LLC interests or the control over the LLC that you are promised. And then creditors. So in a lot of loan agreements, especially in real estate and business, if there is a default on the loan, oftentimes the creditor has some right to come in and operate the business or operate the property, collect rents and things like that. So if the creditor's control only comes from the loan, the right to receive a certain payment, then that creditor does not have to be reported as a beneficial owner, even though they kind of look like one, right? So there's an exemption there. Now, if the creditor has equity and becomes a beneficial owner because of their equity or some other reason, that doesn't count here. So this is creditors stepping in under the rights they have in their loan documents. They do not have to report as a beneficial owner. Okay. So let's say we have an LLC. The LLC is not exempt and we have beneficial owners. What exactly do we need to report? We're going to start with the full legal name of the entity and any trade names or DBAs, doing business as, or assumed names of the entity. So my business, for instance, is Dodson Robinette PLLC. My DBA is Crowdfunding Lawyers. We have a couple other DBAs, so I need to report all of those in the filing. What state was it formed in? Where was the filing made to create it? What is the street address of the primary place of business? So this is an actual physical address. This is not P.O. box. This is not the UPS store. This is actually a street address where business takes place. And I know that's difficult. A lot of us have virtual businesses, but you have to report someplace where they can come and, I don't know, shoot you for doing bad things, I guess. You report the tax ID, which is probably an EIN. If you're a disregarded entity, it might be your social security number. But whatever tax ID the business uses. And then, of course, you have to report information on all of your beneficial owners. Okay, so let's get into what are we reporting on our beneficial owners. So full legal name, date of birth, a government ID number. So this can be a passport or a state ID or driver's license. You have to upload a scanned image of the ID. So apologies to all the people that are not tech savvy enough to get a picture loaded to a website, but you have to do that or find a grandkid that can do it. Current residential street address. So again, not a P.O. box, not the UPS store. This is your home address. And then your favorite color, your underwear size, and your incognito browsing history. So in other words, information the government already has about you, you have to give to them anyway. So, okay. When do we need to report this? Well, if your entity was formed before this year, before January 1st, 2024, then you have till January 1st, 2025. So you basically have till the end of this year to get this done. So where I'm filming this in September. So we got 3.5 months left to file for these older entities. If your entity was formed in 2024, you have 90 days to do the filing. Now, if you poke around on the internet, you might find websites or blog articles that say you have 30 days. Originally, the law said, or the rules said 30 days. They finally came to their senses and extended that to 90 days for entities that are formed this year. So, if you formed more than 3 months ago, but formed this year, you're late, and you should get that filing in as soon as possible. But anyway, 90 days from the date of formation in 2024. Starting next year, 2025, you'll only have 30 days. So once you form it, you got 30 days to get your filing in. Now, the initial filing is not the end of the story. We have to keep these filings regularly updated. And this is where I think a lot of people are going to be caught off guard, because it's super easy to have a change and forget that, oh, I need to do a filing. So basically, any change to the information you put on your report needs to be updated in 30 days. So if your exemption status changes for some reason, so maybe you had 19 employees and you hired your 20th, and you've got enough revenue in the physical location that, congratulations, now you're exempt. You have 30 days to do a filing to tell them you're exempt. Or if you're exempt and then your stock boy quits and you decide not to backfill the position, so now you have 19 employees and you're no longer exempt, you have 30 days to do your filing. Change in ownership. So someone sells their shares and is no longer in the company, 30 days. You bring in a new manager, 30 days. One of the managers or one of the senior officers quits, 30 days. You move, 30 days. You get married and change your last name, 30 days. And here's the one I think it's gonna hit everybody, because driver's licenses don't last forever. Whenever your driver's license expires and you get a new license, within 30 days, you got to update your filing. So you're going to be and imagine, a state like Texas, driver's licenses are good for 4 years. If you have 4 beneficial owners, then on average, you're going to do an update every single year, because someone's license is going to renew, right? So keep that in mind. All right. What happens if I don't file on time? jail. And no, I'm not joking. You actually can go to jail. So the statute calls for civil penalties of up to $500 a day! Exclamation point. And criminal penalties of up to 2 years in prison and a $10,000 fine, just to add insult to injury. So they are not playing around. Now, I don't know so far if anyone has actually received a civil penalty or a criminal penalty for this. But this is what they're authorized to do if you're late on this filing. So imagine being just a month late, right? 500 times 30 days or 31 days. That's a lot of money. That, you know, this far exceeds the penalties for not doing your taxes on time. You can be years late on your taxes and not have to pay $500 a day, right? So they are serious. They want you to do these filings. All right. So how do we, and this is a big question. This was the title of the presentation. How do we avoid penalties under the Corporate Transparency Act? How do we avoid penalties from being late? Well, don't be late. Do your filings. Which brings up the question, so how do I file? Well, the first way you can do it, there's a couple ways. The first way you can do it is go to finsin.gov. And the website looks kind of like this. And you click this little button over here. It says file your report now. And it brings you to this page, and you click file your BOIR, your beneficial owner information report. And then you're off to the races. And it's just, you fill out the form top to bottom. Now, there are pros and cons to using the government site. The first pro is that it's free. You don't have to pay anything to file. It'd be rather terrible if you did, because everyone has to file, right? And the website, frankly, is not that hard to use. So I was really expecting this to be the Obamacare launch all over again, and to be just a complete dumpster fire. And it's not. The website actually works pretty well. It's not terribly hard to use. It's functional. You know, anyone with moderate intelligence can read through and fill out the form. Cons, you can't save your work and come back later. So let's say you have 4 beneficial owners and 3 of them got you the scan of their driver's license, but you haven't chased down the 4th guy yet. You got to wait until you get that 4th scan in, because you have to do the entire form at once. You can't save, come back, update, whatever. They do have a PDF option, and I downloaded the PDF, and it looked like this, which I don't know what this is. It just, so for all practical purposes, you can't save on it, save and come back. You got to do it all at once. If you're missing a piece, you're going to have to just start over. You have to enter all the information manually. So you're going to have to type out all the numbers on the driver's license and the addresses and everything. And they don't give you any kind of master account to store the filings that you've made in the past, or to keep information on your beneficial owners so that you can update it in the future. So whenever you have an update, you're doing the whole damn form again, top to bottom. You can't just go in and change the expiration date on the ID and resend it, right? Okay. Second option, and this admittedly is in my own self-interest, so I apologize, but I'm going to do a little plug here. We have made the Crowdfunding Lawyers Portal, and I am so proud of this thing. It is really freaking cool. So you have a login screen like this. Once you sign up, you'll sign in, you'll set your password and everything. And you're going to get a dashboard like this. So this is my actual dashboard for my entities. By the end of the year, I've got to do 19 of these darn things. And you can see I've got multiple entities. They're all stored here. A couple of them have been filed. A couple of them I'm in the middle. So I have several entities with my partner, Nate. I have several entities with my wife. I have several entities with other colleagues of mine. And so up here where I have saved owners, I can have all their information saved for future filings. I don't have to enter it over and over and over again. I just go to the save list and say, hey, Bob Smith is in this entity too. All his information pulls in. Like I said, you can come back and save your work and come back. So this one I did a little bit on, and then I stopped, and I can click resume and pick up right where I left off without having to redo anything. And then once I've filed, if I need to change something, I can just file an updated report. I click there, I make the changes I want, and I resend. So super duper easy. Here is once you actually get into doing the filing. And on the left, we have navigation. So here's all the sections of the report, and I can do those in any order that I want. Over here in the lower right, I can click to get support. So if I have a question, maybe I don't understand something about the form, you can click there and actually send a message to my team and ask the question. We'll get back to you usually within 1 business day to answer that question, so you can keep on going with your filing. Try asking Finson how to file the report, and they probably won't have anyone talking to you. And then again, you can save your work, exit, come back later. Okay, so here is really cool part, and that is adding your beneficial owners. So like I said, I can, when I have multiple entities with the same individuals, I can save their information and load it back. So that's right there. If I have a beneficial owner and I don't have his information, I don't have his license or anything, instead of having to chase him down myself, I can have the website send him a link, and he clicks the link and uploads it himself, and I don't even have to deal with him. And then here, this is the coolest part. So whether it's you or one of your beneficial owners, instead of having to fill out your own information, you just drop your ID in here. And when you upload the ID, it's got an AI that reads it. And this is further down the page. It fills in all these fields for you. You don't have to type a thing. And then all you do is you click save to be able to use them in future reports. And then you click add owner to report, and they're in. And real quick, if you'll permit me, I'm going to do just Bill O'Reilly. I'm going to do it live. So I just want to demo this because I'm really, really proud. So hopefully this will work, live television and all that. So here's the screen. Here's the place to upload the ID. I've got a fake ID over here that I've been using to get into bars since I was 13. And so I drop this in. And poof, all the information on the ID has been filled in, and then all I would have to do is to click to save and add them to the report, and I'm done. I've done everything. So huge time saver there. All right. So just to recap, pros and cons of our portal. 1, you can create a master account for all your companies and all your beneficial owners. Keep them in one place. You can save your work and come back later. You can complete the sections in any order. You can submit questions about the filing and actually get answers. You can email your beneficial owners and have them provide their own information, so you don't have to do the work for them. You can fill out the information simply by dropping in an image of the ID. And most importantly, you can save all this information for future updates. And I guarantee you will have future updates, and you don't want to fill out the form top to bottom every single time. Now, cons. It's not free. Sorry. We got to keep the lights on. So what does this cost? Well, we've got 2 options. So the first is the DIY account. So we give you access to the account. It's $200 per entity per year. And for that entity, you get unlimited filing. So you get your initial filing, you get any corrections, you get any updates. If you become exempt, you get your exempt filing. As many filings as you need to do throughout the year, covers them all. You can store all the information for multiple entities and for multiple beneficial owners. So I did my first filing. So I tested out the Finson side. I did one filing actually on finson.gov. It took me about 45 minutes. I did my first filing on our portal, and it took me about 15 minutes. And I did my second filing on the portal, which was an entity I had with my wife. So it was my spouse and I. So the same ownership. So the second one took about 2 minutes. So I cut the filing time from 45 minutes to 2 minutes by using the portal and using the stored information. That was great. You can submit questions. And I didn't mention this before, but the site will give you regular reminders to update your filings. So it's going to email you every month with just hey, remember, if there was any change to your entities, make sure you do your filing. And also it monitors for when your ID is going to expire. So if one of your beneficial owners' passport or driver's license is about to expire, it's going to email and say, hey, this license is about up. You're going to need to file an update. So that's super, super handy. So we don't forget. So we don't get hit with the $500 a day fine for being late. Our other option is, and I don't think a whole lot of you will need this, but if you do, it's there. So if you're just not sure about how to do the filing or who actually counts as a beneficial owner or, you know, whatever, and you just really want some hold handing, we have a done with you account. It's $500. You get everything that you get in the DIY account plus live help from our team. So myself or one of my team members literally is going to get on Zoom with you and look at your company documents and do the whole filing with you right there. So that's $500 per entity per year. So how do you sign up? We have a website coming where you can sign up, just put your credit card in and it does everything. It's like probably 2 days away from being launched. It's kind of embarrassing I don't have it done by now. When it's done, when we have the YouTube, you know, evergreen version posted on our YouTube channel, I'll have a link in the description below. Until then, just email us, boi@crowdfundinglawyers.net, BOI, beneficial owner information, at crowdfundinglawyers.net, not .com, .net, and just send us your name, your business name, and then which option you want, the DIY or the done with you. Alternatively, if you're just a chatty person, feel free to call our office at the easiest phone number in the world, 469-444-9999. That's 469-444-9999. Okay. And again, once this is posted on YouTube, so if it is after September 18th, 2024, we'll probably have the link to just sign up online in the description. So check that out as well. Okay. Few takeaways and pro tips to give you. One, maintain good corporate hygiene. So make sure that you keep your entity documents up to date, your filings with the state, your addresses, your member list, your equity owner lists, et cetera, et cetera. Just make sure that you keep really good records of your entity. That's important in general, and also important to make sure that your BOI filings are accurate. Make sure you take the time to gather all the information on your beneficial owners well before the filing deadline. Like any group project, you're going to have that one person that just drags their butt, and you're going to have to get onto them. You know, please send me a scan of your ID, or if you use our portal, please click the link and upload your ID so we can do this filing. But yeah, give yourself some margin. Don't wait till the due date to try to get these filings done. Review your entity information regularly. Make sure nothing's changed. Make sure nobody's moved. Things like that. When in doubt about whether someone should be disclosed as a beneficial owner, just disclose them. Better safe than sorry. It's not going to hurt if you have a few other people disclose that you otherwise wouldn't have. When really in doubt, talk to a lawyer. Again, self-interest in all being a lawyer, but consult a lawyer, whether it's us or whether it's another firm. Get on the phone with a lawyer if you really don't know what you need to do in a particular situation. And then finally, terminate entities you no longer use. So there is the exemption for inactive entities. Not a whole lot of entities are actually going to fall into that, since they have to be so old before they're considered inactive. But another thing that some LLC owners tend to do is when they're done using an LLC, they will just let the LLC expire. They'll stop doing their annual filing or their franchise tax filing or their public information report, whatever their state requires. And by not doing those filings, eventually the state will terminate the LLC's right to do business. That is not the same as terminating the LLC, like filing a certificate of termination. So for purposes of the Corporate Transparency Act, that, you know, Texas LLC that you let go because you didn't do your franchise tax filings still exists for the CTA and still needs to do that BOI report. So go ahead and file your certificate of termination with the state for the entities you don't use. Get rid of them entirely before the end of this year, before you have to do a BOI filing, and just get them out of your life. And so you're not having to deal with that or face penalties for that. So with that, that is the end of what I have to say. I'm going to put the contact information back up on the screen. Email us if you're interested in using the portal for yourself and your businesses, or call our office. I will thank you all so much for attending, watching, learning, and hopefully we'll get to do some business together in the future. All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care.